Welcome back, everybody, to DEGN Talk. I'm your host, Jack, and today we have a very OG project, right? We have IOTA, right? It's been around for a very long time, and it's my pleasure to introduce Dom. Welcome, Dom.
Hey Jack, how are you doing?
Good, good. Please give us an intro of yourself and a quick intro of IOTA.
Yeah, so I'm Dominik. I'm originally from the mountains in northern Italy. I always used to joke because the mountains were so beautiful. I was in front of my computer all the time when I was young, and so I joined this entire crypto slash blockchain space back in 2011 because I was really convinced that this notion of permissionless innovation and us building technologies to empower people is sort of like my purpose as well, and it is something that I really want to commit my life to, right? And so I've been working full time in crypto since that day, right? So it's like 14 years now. So it's a long time. And
Yeah.
I started out doing different businesses, building crypto exchanges, winning some hackathons. But obviously, like my main focus has been on founding IOTA in 2015 and leading and building up the project ever since.
Wow, amazing. I was going to ask about your crypto journey thus far, but you're an OG. You've been here since the very beginning. In through the experiences that you've been through, what kind of gave you this motivation to build IOTA in the first place? Like, what was the inspiration?
You know, it really had to do with the thought that blockchain and crypto as a whole will only really have fulfilled its purpose and realize its full potential if it got adopted in the real world, right?
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
not just about us building like these crypto specific games. It's not like these PvP games, right? Player versus player. It is about creating something larger than ourselves. It's about creating something that is going to really fundamentally transform entire industries, transform our economy, and connect people in new ways. So this is also why, since the founding of IOTA, our focus has been on doing things differently than others. So we really pioneered this entire real-world adoption space, right? Working with big companies, working with governments, and leading the way on getting blockchain adopted in different sectors. And of course, we did it very successfully in 2017 and showed all the different use cases ranging from mobility to energy transition to supply chain tracking, trade finance, right? Everything. Over the years, I would say a lot of these use cases just didn't make sense. And that's sort of like the nature of things, right? Because it's sort of like a pendulum, right, of extremes. Where on the one side you try and go show what is possible, and then it obviously takes some time to actually crystallize what actually makes sense and what doesn't. And so for us with IOTA, what really crystallized in terms of the use case that make the most sense and where we have really built up a moat and have built up sort of like our unique vertical is everything around international trade, right? The backbone of our modern economy, digitizing supply chains, tokenizing physical assets like commodities, bringing them on chain and then working on trade finance. So I think this is really the main sector that we focused on and where we've built up a very successful business.
Nice. I was going to ask you what your current focus is at. So IOTA being one of the OGs, what will be the core kind of mission statement for IOTA for 2025?
I think it's about using what we start, like IOTA in 2015, we started with a big vision. And the vision was really to build this machine economy, to bring the real world on chain. And that vision has stuck with us ever since, right? So even though the technology has changed, even though the team founders have changed, right? And we've sort of transformed the project fully, our vision has always remained the same. And our vision has always been, hey, like we're going to bring the real world on chain. And I think 2025 is probably the most exciting year in our history. And keep in mind, I've been doing IOTA for 10 years. So I hold no other crypto other than IOTA. So I'm really I really have this founder ethos, right? Like either you live and die with the
You
project.
live and die with the project, yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell you, like this year is really the most exciting year for us because we've really done this fundamental shift in our technology, right? Like getting IOTA Rebased to mainnet. This is also something we can also talk about afterwards in more detail. But I'm very confident that this year we're really going to bring like real-world adoption on chain, right? Bring physical tokenized assets on chain, yield-bearing assets with real yield, right, of the real economy, bringing that on chain, and then also bringing new use cases on chain, right? Like our supply chain tracking solution already runs in production in Kenya. And right now we are actually expanding it across 5 more countries in Africa, and also in other countries like in the UK. And I'm very excited to see what we can also do in the US. And so I really think that this year is the year where things are coming together, and we are onto a really good path with IOTA.
Awesome. What's in store for your long-term holders and users and community that really believe in IOTA? Is this something IOTA's gonna give back to the long-term supporters and holders?
Yeah. I think one of the most important things to keep in mind is I think we really have this ethos of never giving up, right? And
Yeah.
all these other projects, they're like a one cycle winner. And I can tell you, it is very possible to win in one cycle, because IOTA was probably the biggest winner in the 2017 cycle. But I can tell you, like, endurance in this market is very punishing and it's very difficult to sustain. And I think we've proven that we are the ones who are here to stay, and we are here for the right reasons. Right? I didn't join this space. I didn't help to create IOTA to make money. That was never the point. Like, the point was really to create something in the real world and to change something about the world. Right? And I think for long-term holders who have been part of this journey as well, I think they've also seen this maturation of the project and the maturation of myself, of the team as well, where we really mean business this year, right? And so we had this amazing upgrade in early May, where we fundamentally transformed the layer 1, right, and launched one of the most exciting new layer 1s into the market. We've introduced staking rewards so that those long-term holders who are really believe in IOTA and want to help to secure the network actually can earn staking rewards. And then obviously, towards the end of the year, we have some amazing growth and marketing campaigns planned to really build up that entire market, that entire Web3 ecosystem in IOTA, and then also make sure that the OGs can participate in that, earn yield, earn rewards, and with that be part of this journey of us getting the reward on IOTA.
Awesome. Let's get into some of the very details of what's up and coming. Give us like a breakdown of 6 to 12 months in terms of what IOTA is going to achieve, but we'd love to know the details as well.
Yeah, of course. Maybe I can also start with IOTA Rebased, because I think that sets really the trajectory.
Yes.
2 years ago, we made the decision internally in the foundation that we need to really introduce programmability on the layer 1, right? So to give a recap, like, IOTA reinvented the DAG ledger, right? The directed acyclic graph, where you have like a multi-threaded architecture that is much more scalable. And over the years, we've really built up an amazing R&D team in the foundation, but we always realized that we sort of lacked this programmability on the layer 1 and in the protocol. And so 2 years ago, we made this important decision to effectively introduce the MoveVM on the layer 1. So next to Sui and next to Aptos, we wanted to be the third move layer 1. And one of the realizations that we've had there is that, like, Sui's architecture and their work is somewhat similar to our work, and they've really done a tremendous job in obviously taking forward what was started at Facebook and building up a production ready protocol. And we've always seen the amazing success that Sui had in the market. And so for us, it was pretty clear that we can replicate that success that Sui had, starting by introducing their technology into IOTA, right? So really, like, what we call IOTA Rebased, which is us effectively fundamentally changing the layer 1 and introducing a new ledger architecture that is similar to Sui, right? So we have the MoveVM on the layer 1 that is equivalent to Sui's. Then we also have staking rewards on the layer 1. So right now you can earn between, I think, 12 to 15% APY by staking IOTA tokens, right? So
that's a lot. That's a lot right now.
Yeah, we need to reward the token holders for securing the network, right? And so this is why we made the decision to introduce that inflation. And then it's also highly scalable, right? So some of our tests have shown we can do up to 50,000 transactions per second. And with that, we can really bring all of these real-world adoption use cases on chain. And we have incredibly low fees. And these fees also get burned, right? And so now we have a really robust new layer 1. We have one of the most exciting technologies. We always joke now, like, IOTA is the old new kid on the block, because we have this 10-year history in the market. This year will be our 10-year anniversary, right? But we have one of the latest, one of the newest, and one of the most exciting technologies, the layer 1s in the market, right? And so I think this is really what we're focused on right now, to basically get all of this adoption onto the networks. What we are doing right now is we're getting the base building blocks of a DeFi ecosystem on-chain, right? So have the liquid staking token, have a collateralized debt position like a IOTA-backed stablecoin, have a DEX on their money markets, and then with that really like fuel the liquidity into there. And then our main objective over the next 3 to 6 months is to introduce a bridge, right? Work with the biggest bridge in the market, make sure that we can then actually tap into the liquidity on other networks, and then run several campaigns to actually incentivize that liquidity coming to IOTA. What I'm personally most excited about over the next 6 to 12 months is really these unique applications that only IOTA can have, right? That no other layer one has, because I think you know it, right? Like all these layer ones are very similar technologically in what they can achieve, and they're all going for the same use cases. And so with IOTA, we've been focused on very different use cases. So what we bring onto the mainnet is Twin, right? So Twin is our logistics infrastructure, basically digitizing international trade. And that one already runs in production in Kenya, and it also is right now being expanded to 5 more countries. We're going to bring that to the IOTA mainnet so that all of that activity will actually come to the mainnet, right? And then we can confidently say like actual governments are using the IOTA mainnet. I think that's something that's really incredibly exciting, that we will start seeing all of that activity. So that's one unique application that we're bringing to the network. The other unique application is in trade finance, because we're going to tokenize real-world assets like trade receivables and also physical commodities. And then we're going to make it possible for investors to actually invest into those yield-bearing assets. And then with that, IOTA will be a real yield network, right? Because you can actually earn real yield in the real economy on IOTA, which is something very unique. And so this is really something that we're focused on launching before the end of the year. And then we also have some perps exchange, or our perps exchange, that's going to launch on-chain order book exchange that will really fully utilize the throughput and the capabilities of the new network. And then with that also build one of the most, probably one of the most amazing trading experiences in the market. And so I'm personally really focused on these unique applications on the network, because I think with that will really attract a lot of new liquidity and a lot of new users onto IOTA.
Great. Wow, that's a very, very in-depth answer. There's lots of, like, RWA is like the talk of the town right now, right? Because it's what really brings utility, right? It's what really brings usage, actual usage to a blockchain, right? It will kind of flex every single bit of muscle that a chain provides, right? What would you say the strongest point from IOTA in comparison to other kind of layer ones that's dealing with specialized RWA chains, right? What was what would be the biggest advantage from IOTA?
Yeah. I mean, think about it technologically, right? Like we really focus on the onboarding of on-ramping of these assets. So we have our own tokenization framework. We're actually right now working on a framework that includes legal contracts. So you can actually tie physical assets with their digital representation together so that the digital asset actually holds legal ownership over the physical asset, right? So this is like a new tokenization framework that we've been working on with some amazing partners, and that we want to get to the market as quickly as possible. Of course, the network is incredibly cheap to tokenize assets, is incredibly fast, and is incredibly scalable. But all of that, I think, is probably like the least exciting part about IOTA now. I think what's more exciting about IOTA is we have this 10-year history, right? And we're governed, we've been led by a non-profit foundation, a very reputable market. And we have all of these big companies and actually governments that are entrusting us with some of their use cases, right? And so I think we have this sort of like soft power, right? Because we've built up partnerships like with the Trademark Africa, with the Tony Blair Institute, with the World Economic Forum, who really want to work with us on solving real world problems. And I think especially when it comes to these TradFi organizations, they're not just going to launch on some new DEGN layer one. They really want to launch on networks that they can trust, right? Because reputation is everything for these organizations. And so I think IOTA has this track record, we have this reputation, we have this experience in the market to actually work with these traditional organizations and bring them on chain. And so I think this is really like one of the unique edges that we have in the market, that we know how the real world works and we know how to operate there. And we have this track record.
Beautiful. For builders that wants to build on IOTA, what kind of support would they be expecting from IOTA? Would there be grants? Would there be, campaigns or something?
Yeah, of course. So maybe just to highlight this, right? Like last week I was in Singapore because we had the finals of our Moveathon. So this was our hackathon series. We distributed around, I think, $120,000 or $150,000 in rewards to builders. There was like pretty big prizes.
That is
around
pretty big
60.
Price.
Yeah, we had around 60 projects applying, over 200, 300 people. I think it was really an amazing experience, right? And so we'll continue to do these hackathon series where we guide them through the entire process of ideating and then getting a prototype ready. And our focus right now is that with those winners of the hackathon, that we're actually gonna give them the necessary support to get to mainnet, to get the necessary funding, and to make them a success. And so our big interest is really to make sure that we have these success stories on the network and do whatever it takes to support them to succeed. And so right now we really focus on quality over quantity. So we rather go deep with a single team rather than having like 5 different projects in the same kind of category, right? And then give them the necessary support. We also provide funding to these projects, and then we also give them the necessary technical assistance and also hand-holding to make them succeed. We also have a grants program. Over the last 2 years, we've distributed more than $10 million through that grants program, right? We really give like a lot of support, and I think what will be really exciting over the next couple of months is also our Move education sessions, right? Like teaching Solidity developers, teaching Rust developers Move, getting them to build the applications on-chain. And yeah, like we also invite people onto our Discord so they can hang out with the team, can ask questions directly. And yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense, fostering kind of this community of hackers and developers to see what they can build, right? To provide them with the tools and SDKs that they need to kind of be creative. Cool. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of things going on at IOTA. Definitely, I'll be linking some of those stuff in the tweet when this podcast goes out, just for people to see and kind of see where they need to go to understand more about the upcoming things happening at IOTA, right? Would love to get your personal view on a few things, right? What's your view on the current market right now? Like, Bitcoin's going to all new highs and stuff, but we're kind of in a weird place, right? In Web3.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what's your view on the AI, the meme coin, AI agent, all that kind of craziness?
Yeah, I mean, the first half of the year was pretty punishing in some ways, I would say, right? Because we had these breakouts only for them to falter on their face because of some tweets and some announcements out of the White House, right, by a certain individual.
By a certain individual, right? Exactly. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. So I think it was pretty frustrating for a lot of people, and like I know a lot of people that have sort of lost hope as well, and we're like, hey, I'd rather take a holiday or get out of crypto and do other things. But that's how it always works in these cycles, right? Like if things go difficult, some people just don't sustain it, and that's part of it, right? And I do think that now we have a lot more hope, especially with Bitcoin leading the way, because Bitcoin has really established itself as this reserve currency more and more that is really interesting for these really large financial institutions, potentially even sovereign wealth funds, that are making these allocations to Bitcoin for strategic reasons. That is incredibly exciting to see that evolve and that play actually becoming true, right? Because of course, narratives is one thing, it actually becoming reality is a different thing. And so I think Bitcoin is really positioning itself well. I think altcoins will definitely follow as well. I'm definitely very much hopeful, and I'm also confident that we will have an alt season again. I don't think that we'll have the same things as last cycles where everything will just pump. I do think that you need to be differentiated. You need to have a clear focus, a clear strategy. You need to focus also on institutional adoption, because right now it's not retail market, it's an institutional market. Right? And so this is why for IOTA, for example, US is really critical, Korea is really critical, and institutional adoption is really critical, positioning us well in this market. And so I think you need to really stand out in this market right now for these institutions to actually have a reason to invest into you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really exciting. I think all of these other metas like meme coins, AI coins, I think it's fine. Like I do think it is about creating value, showing sustainable growth, showing that you generate revenues, and showing how there's also like a benefit for token holders to benefit from that growth of the app, right? Like Hyperliquid is a great example, right? It actually earns money. The money goes back to the token holders through token buybacks. I think we want to see more of those play out, because that really gives institutions and crypto investors a reason to participate in the market. Because then it's not just like coins with no purpose. Then it's really coins that are an ownership stake in a specific ecosystem or an ownership stake in a project, right? And I think that's really what this is all about.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing must be quite frustrating for you, right? As someone who is very true to building, right? You're very true in kind of building technology to kind of advance the space. And then right now we see just people copying off each other and launching coins with no utility, no value whatsoever, but a 5-minute pump, right? Yeah, it's like a pure PvP game, right? It's about who rugged the other person, Is this what you envisioned when you started crypto like 14 years ago? And like, what was the biggest difference from what you thought it would be and
You know, it's
what it is right now?
Yeah, no, it's really funny. Like I can tell you, nobody thought it would get this big, right? And nobody, like when you joined, when we joined this space, I remember all these like Bitcoin talk forum posts where people were really like very radical ideas and ideologies of how the world should be built, right? And I think it was really all about like this sort of like Austrian economics and how we can actually fight the fiat system and fight the centralized governments. I think like some of these ideas definitely resonated with me, but I was always a lot more practical and pragmatic in the sense that hey,
Like, we need to work with them to get anything.
exactly,
Like, we need to kind of go into that, right? Yeah, to kind of work
exactly,
with
exactly.
them.
Yeah, and I never had this fuck the banks mentality like some of the people back in those days had. It was always more like, hey, like in order to build a new system, you actually need to have a transition, right? And so we need to
Exactly.
work on it.
You also need liquidity from traditional finance anyway, right? Otherwise, where's the money going to come from, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I think all in all, I definitely think that this year is much more exciting than the last few years because the last few years there was definitely like I would say somewhat of a distraction, but because of all the nonsense that was happening, it is part of the game. I don't want to judge, right? And
Yeah, yeah. It's a process, right? Last year
yeah,
was a lot of noise, right? It's very noisy. It's all about narrative, right? Nobody gave a shit about actual kind of tech. But
yeah,
now, I think this year, people actually want to see something like this is actually useful, right? Like what you
exactly.
build is like I can imagine use cases. If you
Yeah,
just come out with a deck with no tech to show for, you're never going to get any investment. And rightfully so, right? So the past couple of years is very crazy, right? You see like what this how many layer twos now? Like 100 something layer twos, right? It was so easy to get investment 2 years ago, right? Just say, oh, I'm building a blockchain. There's going to be people handing you blank checks and stuff, right?
yeah,
For what? Why do we need like 100 odd something layer twos, right? We don't need it, right?
yeah.
So, yeah, is that what you're kind of like getting
Exactly.
to, right?
No, I fully agree with you, and it resonates well with me, right? Like I'm quite technical, and I was in this space for a long time, and like when I saw some of these websites of these layer twos, I was like, I don't fucking get what this is. Why there was some
All the
roll up,
buzzwords are the same, right?
yeah, data
There's nothing
availability
new.
here, ZK there, and it's like, what is this? Like, I don't get what it is, and so I definitely think we're moving away from that towards more value creation. And like you said, right, it's no longer possible just to launch a new layer one because that is not the product market fit. That is not the for many people, launching the token was the product itself. The
Yeah,
token
after
itself,
launch token, their job is done basically.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And once they've dumped the token, they escape, right? They fucked off basically. And that's not what crypto is about, right? Because we're really here to build technology that changes the world. And by doing that, by changing the world, we actually deserve the trillions of dollars coming on chain, the $1 trillion valuation. Like I really believe that what we're building here will have $1 trillion valuations, right? Because we are really changing an archaic system and we're changing entire industries, right, with these new technologies, with these new ecosystems. And that's what this is all about. And so I always have a very long-term view. Of course, there's this love-hate relationship with crypto where you sometimes be like, when you sometimes like, hey, what is this? But you always find the way forward because we have a vision, right? We have a purpose in life, and that's what I'm really excited for to really realize that vision. And I think 2025 is really the year where we're going to see some of these breakout successes in IOTA because we really have all this real-world adoption that we worked so hard for over the last 6 years, 7 years, coming to the mainnet and coming to reality. And then with this institutional adoption coming here with more sophisticated investors, I think it will be much easier for us to position ourselves.
It's great to see like some of the projects. Obviously, I was shit talking the something got changed, but the ones that did continue to build, you see them kind of pivoting now, right? You see them really kind of thinking on, okay, how am I going to get whatever I'm building into mass adoption? How am I going to actually provide that real value that people expect us to provide? Right, and that's really good to see because they're actually starting to kind of realizing that there's got to be some utility there, otherwise who's going to use it?
100%. Exactly.
Last question before we finish: what is your ultimate goal and milestone for IOTA? how many years in the future? Like, what is that vision that you ultimately want to see? When would you be like, okay, I'm good now. I can sit back and kind of, I'm
Yeah.
chill now.
I mean, like for me, I've never had an exit goal with IOTA. Like for me, it was all, and like I've always held the tokens through the extreme highs and extreme lows because for me, this is like my ownership stake in something that I'm creating, right? And I don't want to reduce that ownership stake. For me, it was really about building something larger than myself, and I want to be part of this journey because I really believe that what we're doing here will transform the world, right? And will change the world. And we will succeed if we ourselves are no longer building all the applications, right? Like if we really have this success in building up the ecosystem of having applications of startups launching on top of the network without asking for permission and building the future on top of IOTA, right? And like, of course, right now we have this strong focus on international trade, bringing those physical assets on chain, but the network can be used for so much more, right? And so we want to empower the future builders to actually bring those applications on chain. So it really becomes this self-fulfilling or self-replicating ecosystem where it's no longer just dependent on me and the team working really hard, but it's like an entire ecosystem of equally talented and amazing people moving it forward. But I really see myself as being part of IOTA forever, right? Like this is really like my life, like my life's purpose as well, and what I'm here for. And of course, in the short term, my main objective is to make this a rising phoenix, make this one of the biggest comeback stories, right? Because I can tell you, no other layer one, no other token has ever made a comeback, really, other than Solana maybe. And so I want IOTA to be one of these. And we were number 4 in 2017. So I really want to get the IOTA back into the top 10 and prove our worth and our value in the system. But my life's purpose goes beyond just that value creation, right? It's really about building something that is going to be the backbone of our digital economy and be this digital infrastructure that people rely on that connects our world, so to say.
I think your holders will be extremely happy after they seen this podcast for the for the belief that you have that the actual I'm holding this, I'm building this until whenever, I'm not going to end this ever. So yeah, it's a lot of confidence. And Dom, thank you so much for your time today, and I hope to see you again in future episodes of DEGN Talk. And to my audiences, thank you very much again for another episode of DEGN Talk. I'm your host, Jack, and this is Dom from IOTA. Thank you, Dom.
Yeah, thank you, Jack.
I'll see you guys next time. See you later.
Bye bye.